You gonna be able to calm yourself down?
I just said, I don't know why I get giggly when we start these. I guess because I reached for my water bottle. I might as well drink.
Hi, welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I'm author Carissa DeLay with my co-host and his water bottle,
Jamie Vendera and Copper.
Copper. Oh yes, we should we should name it.
I will. I would. Okay, I may be wrong because I'm colorblind. Can I name this one Pinky?
Do you really think that's pink?
It's like a very, very light purple. What color
That's
is
white. What?
No, it's not.
Jamie, that's hot. I mean, maybe it's the video, but that looks like there's hardly any color in that.
Okay, yeah. Don't ask me for color palettes. Like if we discuss like how to do your cover and choose colors, you do not ask me. I do know this is copper though. All right. So,
that's probably because the label said that whenever you purchased it.
It might have. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look.
Man, all right. So,
come here.
Well, like I said, we're back here on the podcast now. Jamie's been, to the beach and back, but not my beach apparently. He went to the other beach.
Well, I did look down out the window, try to see you on the beach as I flew over, went to the Cayman Islands, but
no, I wasn't there. It's too cold here in Florida right now. It's like 40 degrees. I'm like frigid.
It was a little cool in Cayman. It was bad though. It was so windy out on the ocean that the waves were horrible. The streets were flooding. I work with I Prevail, and they were on Shiprocked, and they were supposed to come into Cayman. That's how they pronounce it down there. The name's
really?
Cayman. Yes, Cayman. I was at the airport, and I was like, where's the one for Cayman? They're like, Caveman. And I'm like, I'm so used to being around Jake. So anyway, Shiprock didn't make it to the Cayman Islands because they hit the port in Jamaica and put a hole in the side of their cruise ship.
Holy crap.
It was so bad. But we still had a wonderful time and filmed some really cool songs. So. All right, squirrels are gone. Query letters.
All right, we're going to talk about query letters.
All right.
So we've recently talked to some people, and query letters and synopsis and summaries are some of the things people want to know. How do we do this? So in this episode, we're going to talk about query letters. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about summaries and synopsis, the differences, and, kind of like the basics for that.
Gee, why are we skipping a week?
Oh, because next week we're going to talk about comic books and we're going to talk about graphic novels because it's Superman's birthday.
Yep. I'd rip this open, but I got gray hairs on my chest, so.
Yes, Superman's birthday is next week on leap year. So what better time to talk about that kind of thing? So that'll be exciting. All right, query letters. So I took some notes. Did you ever write a query letter, Jamie?
No, you know what? Back in the day when I tried to get Raise Your Voice, I didn't really understand. I reached out to a bunch of publishers and did like a basic summary of my book and told them who I was. But that's the way to make your query letter suck. This is like something that you have to put your time into and be very detailed and do your research before you even consider sending one out.
Yeah, and usually, so a query letter, so for those who don't know, when you have written a book or a manuscript or you've written like an article for a magazine even, or just in general, you're trying to get your writing published, you sometimes need to have some type of representation if you're trying to do it traditionally through a traditional magazine or a book publisher or whatever you're doing. If you're going the traditional route where someone's going to publish you, they're not typically open to submissions from the public. You have to have representation from an agent, an editor, someone. It has to get you in the door. It's almost like that middleman. So there's a lot of things you have to do prior to that publication. And the first thing you have to do is learn how to write a query letter. But you also have to learn what avenue you need to take. Like, you don't want to send a query letter to an agent who is a romance novel person.
If you're sci-fi.
You're sci-fi, correct. I actually had that written down. Like,
it's because our squirrels are in tune.
Yes. I had that wrote down. Like, make sure you approach it, because if you're like writing a memoir, don't send it to a thriller agent. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you want to make sure who you're sending it to. You know your audience, know who you're sending it to, and what they require. Because when I was doing this, when I first went with Crystal Gate, and before I became a published author with Vendera, I tried to get published with an agent, taking it to a different publishing company. I just had a client that happened to know Jamie, so I kind of got a back door in. But and that sometimes happens. I've heard stories where people like, I went to a literary writing thing and there are a few publishers there. I met a publisher on the elevator, talked to him about my book. He's like, here's my card, send me an email.
That's why the only reason I spoke to you. I've over the years I've had dozens and dozens of submissions,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, and a lot of them they don't do the research. I'm not saying I'm opposed to writing romance or anything. There's some romance in some of our books, but I've had a couple romance novelists, and I'm like, I'm not your genre,
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even respond. And I say we don't accept submissions. But
Right.
if you're watching this and you learn how to do that query letter, send it on in. We may.
Yeah, we'll have to open that up because I don't think we have that open on the website right now.
No, but we will.
Submissions aren't. But yeah. So, all right. So typically, like I said, your query letter is something you need when you're trying to get published, and you'll need to find representation. So there are certain things that you want to kind of keep that are necessary in your query letter. And there are things online that you can go and look at examples, but make sure you're looking at examples that are specific to what your genre is, specific to what your storyline is, because you need to know that before you approach someone. And before you start pitching your work, you need to decide: am I a romance novel? Am I a suspense novel? Am I a sci-fi novel? Am I a horror novel? What type of book are you? Are you a poetry like person? Are you a poet? Are you writing a short story, graphic novels? You need to make that decision. Find that representation. Find books that they've have represented, and that way you know that what they're looking for. And then sometimes it's like they're not like looking for anybody. They're like, this is our website, but we're not looking for any new authors at this point. So respect that. And then also search the web for certain publishing companies, because sometimes they'll do a cold read where they will allow submissions for like a small amount of time, and they'll take all those submissions, they'll put them in a pile in a cold read file, and they'll randomly select one and read a few.
And it could be you.
And it could be you. So just keep an eye out there. So sometimes you can skip the middleman without the literary agent. But you have to have that part fine tuned. So some of the things I put down here when I was writing for the notes for this, when you are trying to secure a literary agent, which is the one, like I said, the middleman, and we've talked about this before, when you get an agent, you have to be prepared that when an agent says, yes, I'm interested in your book, they may send it to their own editor, and you may have to be doing some rewriting. So just be prepared for that. So when
Be
you're
really
doing,
prepared. Yeah,
yeah,
it'll happen.
because there's a lot of moving around. Something that what was that? Oh, I know what it was. So when you're submitting to a agent your query letter, you need to decide a few things. What is your main plot? What is your main selling point? If you don't know that, you need to read your book a few times. What is it that's going to get people to want to read this? It's almost like you're writing the back of your book, in a sense, into a query letter, which I have an outline. I wrote an outline of the basic algorithm, because some agents and publishers, when they ask for a query letter, they have an algorithm. And I've mentioned this in the podcast before. They have an algorithm of emails that are submitted. If it doesn't hit that certain layout, it kicks it and they'll never even read it.
That's why you really gotta go to that each individual website and follow the submission guidelines, because you may, if you're a romance novelist and you found 5 publishers, they may have different points that you have to meet.
Yeah,
So
please
don't
include this. Yeah.
so don't write a general. I mean, write your one, but before you go
Customize
submit
it.
to 5, check it, make sure it's going to fit that one, because you might miss that golden chance just because you didn't change a few details.
Yeah, and read it out loud. So you also want to make sure when you submit things, like read it out loud to where it sounds like it flows. That when you're reading it to someone, does this even make sense? Like, does it stumble? Do your words stumble? Do you go? I've read things where it's just like sentences that are cut and paste, and it's like these don't even make sense. Like this sentence doesn't connect to that sentence. Or you have, because typical query letters, they'll tell you in their submission guidelines for your introduction, maybe 3 to 5 paragraphs. Some will have 3, some will have 5. Just depends. You have to read their guidelines, and then your finishing, your ending statements. So basically, you have your thesis of who you are. Actually, let's go through that because I wrote these down because this is the basics of writing a query letter, the steps to getting represented and knowing what each person is asking for. They're all probably going to ask for kind of like a little first paragraph of why you're submitting. What are you submitting? Like, my 120 page sci-fi novel with the title italicized typically.
It's important that you mention the page count.
Yes.
They will definitely want to know that because some with us, we could do shorter books. Some publishing companies are like, nah, it's going to be 200
like they may be into shorts. Like, I don't want to handle this many words. This is going to be a nightmare trying to cut down. That may not be what they're interested in. So it's very important to do that. But again, and sometimes they have a whole thing on their website that tells you what they're looking for. Please don't skim that. Be very. I remember I would take notes of what each agent wanted. So it is a research on its own. Like that's why sometimes people don't go the traditional route and they just go sell. It's a lot of work.
It is
to figure it out. And some agents. Go ahead.
It reminds me of especially on Instagram and TikTok. I've been doing a lot of studying about that, and it's like, if you can't catch your audience in 3 seconds, they're going to scroll to the next video. Mm-hmm. So, they're reading, you got to come out strong. You got to like pull them in immediately, or they're just going to be like, next.
Right.
So it's got to be tight. It's got to be concise. It's got to pull me in immediately.
Sorry, I was getting a little tickle in my throat. I'm wearing white, so I had
any chance I have.
You're right. I'm wearing white, so inevitably I always get something on white.
I'm looking at
this. Same color as my shirt.
Is it really?
Okay. What color is my shirt?
Like light. Yours looks white over here.
Well, I mean, the lighting on your thing may make that look a little. It has some kind of iridescent to it. Well, right there, it looks light purple.
Okay. See, I'm not crazy.
Well, that's still debatable.
That's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So to start your letter, remember you are writing a professional email or letter. Typically, you can email it. So you're writing this professionally. This is not like, hey Joe, I'm writing this book and blah blah blah. You want to make sure it's dear the agent's name and do a spell check. Make sure you're writing it correct because the first thing you do is spell it wrong. It's out.
Don't Vandera it. Jamie Vandera
it. Vandera it. Jamie Vandera.
It's like what's that bowling movie? Kingpin. He's like, I can't remember. Have you seen Kingpin, the bowling movie?
No. I know what you're talking about though.
Oh man, he was Munson. Because he had the world in his hands and he dropped it. So if you've been there, you have typos.
Yeah, is that got Woody Harrelson in it?
Yes, it's the best movie in the world. One of them, next to Joe Dirt.
Oh my gosh, you're showing your roots now.
Yep.
All right. So then typically you have an opening paragraph. Your opening paragraph is typically 3 sentences long to maybe 5. You don't want it super wordy. Like, don't tell them that you got 4 kids or your mother, all these. You're not giving that story. You are selling yourself as an author. You are selling your book. You're not, unless you're doing a memoir. Now, if you're doing a memoir, that's different because you're trying to sell what your memoir is about and what brought this book about. That's a whole different, like, understanding of a query letter, as if it's a more of a memoir, autobiography, that biography, like personal information. That's different. You're selling that information. But fiction book wise, or even like nonfiction for the most part, if you're selling a point, is you want to make sure that that first paragraph is compelling to introduce briefly why you're reaching out to the agent. Make sure I said page count, name of the book, italicized. And also you can at this point, you could kind of do it here or towards the end, either one, but put out your writing credentials. Like, what do you have that sells you as an author? What makes me think that you can write? So that's basically your first little paragraph. And it's kind of hard to sum that up. I mean, it's not, you don't want to make it seem like, this is where it's almost like you have to be creative in a short amount of time. So you become a short book writer or a short story writer. So the next are the next 2, 3, 4, or even 2 through 7, whatever, depending on the age. And again, how many descriptive um, paragraphs they say you can put in there. This is where you have to provide an engaging book summary.
And you
Which,
got to start with the hook. I mean, boom, first
yeah,
sentence.
yeah. This is the thing. This is where you're taking your book that, say your book is 300 pages, and you've got to sell it in 3 paragraphs. So essentially, which, like I said, we are going to talk about summaries and synopsises in 2 weeks, but this is like a shortened version of a summary. So it's you got to put the plot in there, and you don't be afraid to reveal, because you're trying to sell this. You're like building it up. Like, for example, for Crystal Gate, uh, that was a really hard part for me because there's so much happening in the Crystal Gate that I'm like, what are the main points? I couldn't pull the main points out at first. It really has taken me several years to figure out what is the main captivating point that grabs people to my book. And I finally figured it out, obviously, years later after I'm already published and everything else, but is the devil is on a mission to reset Eden. However, there's this whole thing. I'm like, okay, these are the main points. Now I have to put that into 3 paragraphs and make that sellable.
But the fact that you started with the devil is on a mission to reset Eden pulls me in, even without knowing the story. I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, I haven't heard this before.
right. Yeah. So
That's
yeah,
the hook.
it comes down to that ultimate choice where he has to choose to stay on the prophecy of the 1,000 years and be bound. Basically, he has to take himself off Earth's plane to stop the rest of the entities of having power. Wherever he is, his power is. He can't take his power away. So wherever he is, his power follows. So if he's not here, his power with his entities doesn't work. They can't use it. So even though his entities are not gone, they have no power. They have no power here. They just exist, essentially. So yeah. But that was the thing. I had the hardest time breaking that down into 3 paragraphs, because there was, when you get done writing a book, you're like, there's so much in my book. What do I tell? You know what I mean?
If I can interject,
Yes.
I think your query letter, and even if you just for the sake of the readers kind of updated it and you did a pretend query letter to
Yeah.
Vendera Publishing, whoever, that would be a great reference
Yeah.
for
And
that.
I will do that. I actually will do that. I'll put it on, I'll probably create a page on Vendera. It's like examples of query letters for this book. So that's what I would do. Yeah. And that's it. It will help you just in general when you're selling it to the public, because when I first went out and was selling the book to people, and they're like, "What's it about?" I felt like that I was throwing so much at them. They're like, "I don't know if I'm gonna like that."
Well, but
Mhm.
some agents and publishers like that. They want more of a detailed, almost a
You're
short
correct.
synopsis where they want to know the ending, they want to know a breakdown of the character, the plots, the
Mhm.
arcs. But
Yes.
that's where you got to do your research.
But that's yes, so that's another thing. So there was an agent that took on books like mine, and she required that you not only write a query letter with the 3 basic stuff that basically gets you in the door first. Like, query letter gets you in the door, and then the summary that she wanted a 3-page summary, well, synopsis essentially. I think it was yeah, hers was a 3-page synopsis. Um, that will get you past the front desk. You know what I mean? So you get in the front door with your query letter. The next part is going to get you past the front desk into maybe her office. So, you're kind of building, what are you doing? Are you getting better at it? So when you're doing that, you have to sell in those 3 paragraphs the basics of your book. So that's where you're pitching you're pitching your idea. Essentially, you're pitching, this is what I wrote, this is what I'm envisioning. And then when you're doing the last paragraph, you're basically you're finishing it off as, again, this is also a place that you can put your credentials. um
Bio
yeah, you're summarizing why you may have
shows any publisher.
yes, shout out. Like, I noticed that I noticed that you have represented many of the authors that I read and I enjoy, and so kind of something like that. You're kind of putting it out there like you've read and researched this agent and you're not just cold submitting to everybody. You know what I mean? Don't, because people know that. Like, I'm just going to submit to everyone. I'm just going to, hopefully, it'll just hit someone down the road. No, make sure when you're doing it, make it very personalized that this agent is who you want. Make them
That's
think, I picked you. And
that
then they
is
say,
huge
yeah.
because you make them feel special. All the query letters I've got, I do not think I've ever gotten one that said, "Hey, I really want to choose you because you've done this fiction or this nonfiction." It's all, you can always tell it's standardized.
Mm-hmm.
They just went through and they spit it out and they're hitting everyone. That's like, yep, delete. It's just, they're fishing. They're trying
Right.
to snag somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And me personally, if someone sent that, I'm like, you don't even care. Like, what? Yeah. If you yeah, you can tell if something's been personal to you or they're just, it's kind of like those things on Instagram when you post a cat picture and they're like, hey, collab with us. You don't know me. You just saw a cat picture.
Yep.
It's not personalized. And sometimes I like to do this every once in a while and I'll message them back, be like, oh, really? Tell me more about this. Just to like, I do that just for fun to kind of like, I don't know. It's just fun. Be like,
I
oh,
del- I delete them. I get a lot like, "Oh, we seen you wearing a skull shirt. We started a new company. We want to send you one. All you got to do is pay shipping, or you would be great for our brand."
but then you go look at their brand, they've got like 10 followers.
Yep.
Like, what brand? Who are them? And you got I'm always wondering, are these people like trafficking humans? What's happening? Like, where are they getting all these models?
Or cats. Yep.
Or cats. Yeah. Oh, that's bad. So in general, your query letter is whenever you're trying to get your work published, it's what you're doing to get representation. So it's very important that you find someone that's going to because if you go with an agent that, it's kind of like going with an ambulance chaser lawyer versus an actual corporate lawyer. You know what I mean? You don't want to get just someone that says they're a literary agent and then they get you nowhere because
You
your
could
book
lose
is
a lot of money. I've seen that happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've known an author. I will not say who I've published, but I had an author who did that and lost 30 grand within like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yep.
On privately, yeah. So yeah, and that's the thing. So if you are a writer, if you are an author, this should be essentially you showing an agent, I'm a writer, in a very short period or very short length. You're showing them I have writing skills. I have ways to sell my book. And they're like, hey, they sold me an email. I know they're going to push their book really well. It's telling all kinds of things when you can hone in and do a really good query letter. I'm looking at my notes. Sorry, because I wrote a bunch of notes down here.
And if you don't, we won't remember it. I got my notes on my iPhone. That's why you keep seeing me do this.
Yeah. We talked about proofreading and make sure you revise before you sending this because it's very important that you are concise. And I said this as well. Don't be afraid to reveal. So maybe put in like the beginning, like the lead up in your first paragraph, second paragraph, the plot twist, and then the ending, how it all comes to the end. Like, how are you going to leave it? Is it going to be a series? Kind of leave it like that. And then the final paragraph is, like I said, it's a summary of you, why you're submitting to this particular agent, and make sure you sign that sincerely, best regards, thank you in advance, keep it professional. And I mean, maybe that's something else we should do on the set list is explain that how to have a professional thing on your email that you can create a signature.
Yeah, we could cover that for sure.
How we have those, like that you have that. I know Catherine Horsley has that. You have that. Myself, where I have clickable icons on my email. So I have my author picture, I have my name, I have my title underneath there, and then I have all these different links, which I need to update and put the podcast on that one. But I have all these different links that you can click in my email and go directly to all my stuff. So even if I'm signing off.
I'm pretty sure we can share the screen in here so we could do that and actually walk them through setting one up in like a Gmail. So that would be really cool to do for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll put that on the set list. We can show them how to create a professional signature on their email to take them to any of their social media that they created because they were listening to our social media episode.
Squirrel alert.
Yes.
When you do write about your book, you don't have to think, oh, spoilers. That's not what this is about. You're trying to get signed, so if they know the beginning, the meat, and the end, it's okay. You're not spoiling the book for them. So don't be afraid. Don't hold back. Like, I don't want them to know what's going to happen at the end. They want to know. They want to know whether your book is worth publishing if they want to take you on.
Right. Yeah. So that's like, I don't tell you which way the devil chooses. I want you to know, like, I want to know, does he choose this one or that one? So
also, pay attention. This is why we say do your research, follow submission guidelines, because they might want a sample of your writing. So
yeah.
you might want to do a chapter or so. And that's where Carissa said earlier, like, don't be afraid that they may end up editing it or making suggestions. You cannot be married to your book.
Yes.
This is the literary world.
Yeah, I recently met with an author that she is a listener, and she's probably listening. Hello, Willow. And I met with her, and her book sounds amazing. This is an amazing book. Whether we publish it or she goes with someone else, this is going to be an amazing book. And that was the thing that kind of led to us doing this episode and the episode in 2 weeks. Is it is hard to write a summary of a large book, but that's why I told her, write us a synopsis, like a summary of your book in 2 to 3 pages, but give us the first 3 chapters. If you have a prologue, give us the prologue and the first 2 chapters. But also look at the details of what someone asks from you, because sometimes they'll say, give us the prologue plus 3 chapters, or they'll say prologue plus 2 chapters. Or they'll have that in the criteria. I've seen that before. And then some will say, just give us a synopsis. Some will say, give us a query letter and then the first 3 chapters. And they'll give you a guideline if you have a prologue.
That's why you have to do your
that,
homework.
Yeah, read that very carefully and know what they're asking for. But typically, they all, I would say 99%, want a query letter. Query letters are like the quintessential, like, in the front door. Like, you can't even get in the front door unless that's done right. So it's very important that you do that properly.
So,
anyways,
that's about all we got to say.
That's query that is in a handbag, darling.
I try to do that, but it comes out like this.
Oh my gosh. Like Joe Dirt?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right.
So dirty.
So those are the notes on query letters, darling. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out. You know what? Actually, if you would like to ask questions, definitely email us at alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com and just put in there query letter question. Okay. And feel free to email and say, what do you think about this one? What's your input? And I would be happy to help you. Or at the same time, if we don't technically reach out back, we will revisit this topic and say, hey, we've got some of these submissions.
Doing a podcast.
And we'll do another episode to say, okay, now that we've talked about the basics, let's talk about the details. Let's read some of these. And what we could do is write query letters based on our own books and kind of give you an idea of where it could go good or it could go bad. You know what I mean? We could almost like kind of critique each other on that. Like, I feel like I'm really not into that one. I don't want to represent that one.
See, now I'm going to have to write a query letter for Raise Your Voice to give them a non-fiction example.
Yes, that's okay. You write a query letter for Raise Your Voice, and I'll write a query letter for Crystal Gate.
Sounds like a plan.
We'll see if we would represent each other.
Yep. Dang, now I got some serious homework.
Right? All right. So, like, if you would like to keep listening and keep up with everything that we're doing, make sure you click and follow us on YouTube and subscribe to our page. Follow us on Apple Music. Follow us on Spotify. Follow us on all our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm just calling it Twitter, even though it's X. Threads. Make sure you're just following us so you can keep up with all of our episodes and that you're helping with us understanding what you need as a listener, but also give us a little shout out and say we're doing a great job.
Yes, please.
For those quality followers that we've talked about in the past. But you can also go to our website, it's alwayswritepodcast.com. And I have those little icons on there that you can click so you don't have to try and follow everything. But anywhere you're looking for it's going to say Always Write Podcast. because we want you to always
That's
write
right.
and always follow.
And always share.
Yes, yes. And Jamie's been doing some great videos. So we've been sharing those too, which I really love those because they're just fun.
I'm just trying to be goofier
You
than I
know, you
normally
should
am.
probably do one with your water bottle, like your alter ego copper water
Okay.
bottle.
What's up, Kalpa?
Oh, look at you.
I know.
All right. So for now, those are our squirrels and those are our query letters. And I'm signing off as author Carissa DeLay. Thank you for listening with my co-host.
Joe Dierte. I just added a little thing on it. It's no big deal.
Oh my gosh. All right. Till next
Jamie
time.
Findere.
Thank you.
I had to represent my favorite movie.